My 42-year-old male, wife, 39-year-old female, had a daughter, Sophie, with her ex. She is now 17. I have an 11-year-old daughter with my late wife. My wife and I have been together for 3 years. My wife is very kind to my daughter, and they are quite close. My daughter has very little memory of her mom, and has told me how nice it is to feel like she has a mom now. My wife is also happy to play that role in my daughter's life. I'm not as close to Sophie because she's older, and she spends 2 weeks a month at her dad's place. But she's polite to me, and I think she's a wonderful girl. Sophie's dad is pretty well off. My wife and I are not so well off. He was the main earner before my wife left him. My wife and I both work full-time, but we have to be careful with our finances right now. We got my daughter a few books, and Sophie a dress for Christmas. Both of them liked their presents. Sophie's dad got Sophie a brand new car. We have only one car in the family right now. I drop my wife off on the way to work in the mornings, so it works out. But it does mean that I couldn't take my daughter or Sophie anywhere during the holidays, as my wife still has to work. I have the week off because I'm a teacher. She did have a few days off though. Now that Sophie has the car, she is planning to go to her friend's New Year's party. My daughter asked if Sophie could drop her at her friend's house too, and Sophie said it's too far out of the way, extra half an hour approximately, and it's her car, so my daughter can wait until she's old enough to drive. I thought this was uncalled for, so I said Sophie was being rude, and she should drop my daughter. She said it's not her fault, I can't afford another car for us. My wife said I should just let it go because my daughter has a dad all the time, and Sophie only has one half the time, and a car is fair compensation, not the right word, but I can't think of a better one for that. My daughter and Sophie are both upset now. Am I the idiot? Edit. I suppose you are right, it's her car. She can do what she wants. I just thought it wouldn't hurt her to think of others this time. My daughter asked very politely, and Sophie often has much nicer things than my daughter, and I've never asked her to share or anything. And I pay for all her gas while she lives with us. Edit again. 30 minutes extra means 15 minutes out of the way. 30 minutes total. An hour is a lot of extra driving, I agree. I can't reply to comments because of the poo mode, so editing here. To the person who said ask nicely, my daughter asked very nicely, and Sophie literally said, I don't have to do anything for you. That's why I said she was being rude. I'm not forcing her, I just said I think she should. To the person who asked if I broke up their family, Sophie's dad cheated on my wife twice. So maybe think before you speak. I might be wrong here, but there's no reason to overreact. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. If I've comprehended correctly. Your daughter asked. Sophie said no. That's Sophie's right. But Sophie added some shade to her response, and you told her she was rude. You're right. Sophie was rude. There is nothing wrong with pointing that out. I think you should have said it would be nice for her to drive your daughter, rather than she should drive your daughter. But that's my only quibble. No one is forcing Sophie to drive your daughter, or punishing her for not doing so. Just merely pointing out that her behavior is less than kind. She said it's not her fault I can't afford another car for us. And I pay for all her gas while she lives with us. Sophie is definitely getting some digs in, and her comments are quite rude. I doubt she is any ruder than the average teenager though. I think the rudeness should still be pointed out, but no bigger deal than that. I think Sophie's mother should have a conversation with her about give and take. If you pay for her gas, she should be willing to drive your daughter or run small errands once in a while. Otherwise, you might want to provide only enough gas for necessary activities. So, maybe enough for driving to school and extracurricular, and a job if she has one. But if she's not willing to help out, she shouldn't expect gas money for trips to see her friends, salon visits, shopping, etc. Comment 2. You're the idiot. Your post makes you sound a little jealous that she was gifted a car you would like but cannot afford. This is your issue to come to terms with. She doesn't owe you an apology for that. Sophie just got the car. So it's hard to imagine your gas money contributions have been substantial. And I'm also assuming you will benefit from not having to drive her around yourself. It shouldn't be shocking that a 17-year-old going out for NYE with friends doesn't want to chauffeur her 11-year-old stepsister around. And I agree with others that I'm not sure I'd want an 11-year-old in a car with a new driver on NYE anyway. Take your daughter to the party yourself. This is what you would have had to do if Sophie never received the car as a gift anyway. I don't know why it's suddenly such a hardship for you. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I'm here to give you the juicy details. After the whole car debacle, things got pretty tense at home. Sophie was still cold towards my daughter, and my wife was caught in the middle, trying to keep the peace. I was frustrated, feeling like I was failing to bring my family together. But then, something unexpected happened. Sophie's dad, who's always been the flashy type, got himself into some serious financial trouble. Turns out, his business wasn't doing as well as everyone thought, and he had been living way beyond his means. Suddenly, Sophie's shiny new car didn't seem so glamorous anymore. Meanwhile, my daughter was feeling left out and hurt by Sophie's attitude. She missed her mom a lot during these times, and I could see it was affecting her. I remembered how my late wife always encouraged kindness and empathy, and I knew I had to do something to honor that. I sat down with Sophie and had a heart-to-heart. I told her about my daughter's feelings and how her mom would have wanted her to have a sisterly figure in her life. I also shared how my late wife had always been the glue that held our family together, and now that role had fallen to us. Sophie was taken aback. She hadn't realized the impact of her actions. She opened up about feeling torn between two families and admitted that she was scared of losing her lifestyle due to her dad's financial issues. It was a moment of vulnerability that changed everything. The next day, Sophie surprised us all. She offered to drive my daughter to her friend's house. Not only that, but she also suggested they spend the day together beforehand, just the two of them. My daughter was over the moon, and I could see a bond beginning to form. As for my wife, she was relieved to see her daughters getting along. She had been feeling guilty about the whole situation, especially since she knew how much my daughter looked up to her. My wife had always been the kind of person who put others first, and she was glad to see Sophie taking a page out of her book. But the surprises didn't stop there. Sophie's dad, now humbled by his financial downfall, reached out to me. He apologized for any tension he may have caused and thanked me for taking care of Sophie. He even offered to help with some of the expenses for the girls as a way to make amends. With Sophie's dad stepping up, things started to look up for our blended family. We all began to work together, pooling our resources and supporting each other. My wife and I even managed to save up enough to buy a second-hand car, making life a lot easier for everyone. Sophie and my daughter started to do more things together, like shopping trips and movie nights. They were becoming the sisters they were meant to be. And as for my wife and me, we were finally feeling like a real team, parenting side by side. In the end, it was the challenges that brought us closer. We learned to communicate, to understand each other's struggles, and to support one another. Our family may not be traditional, but it's filled with love, and that's all that really matters. Brother raised me like a dad and let me live in his apartment rent-free, but now he demands 20% of my business revenue. I realize he's been keeping score and using his past favors as leverage. Then he drops a bomb on me. My brother, older by 11 years, did a lot for me when I was younger and still living with our parents. With him so much older than me, it often felt like he was a second dad to me. Not only did he give advice and guidance, but he also paid for things out of his own pocket. Took me on road trips, paid for movies, restaurants, let me borrow his car, etc. Even when I was a young adult after high school, he let me stay in his apartment, rent-free for a month, before I got my first job. Not only that, he bought me a suit for my first job interview. All this was really great, and I'm very fortunate to have a brother who looked out for me. He has been looking out for me for as long as I can remember. However, also for as long as I can remember, he has told me, "You'll pay me back one day." The first time I remember him saying this, I was 5 years old, and he was 16 years old. Every time he would do something nice for me, he told me, "You'll pay me back one day." Being told this since a very young age, I automatically believed it was true and agreed that I would pay him back. Even into my early 20s, I felt that I really owed him and that I needed to pay him back at some point. I did do nice things for him when I had the opportunity, but not nearly to the scale that he did for me. Being so much younger, I just couldn't do as much for him as he did for me. Now, I'm 32 years old and a dad. When I do nice things for my kid, I can't imagine saying, "You'll pay me back one day." In fact, I think that anyone who would try to instill a feeling of financial debt in a young child is a total AH. A young child doesn't have the mental capacity to understand what this means or the ability to consent to debt. A few months ago, my brother, now 43 years old, said to me, "Remember all the things I did for you? You'll pay me back one day." I responded, "Tell me how much, and I'll pay you." He didn't respond to my comment, but a few minutes later said, "You know you'll pay me back one day." Again, I replied, "Tell me how much and I'll pay you." He responded, "Noor, I know you'll take care of me in the future." Last week, my brother told me that because he helped me so much while I was growing up, he should be given 20% of the revenue in perpetuity from my small business. I was shocked. I refused to pay him, and he was extremely upset. I've since decided that I don't owe him any money, and that he may have been psychologically manipulating me since I was a young child. Am I the AH for refusing to give money to my brother? Is my brother the AH for expecting money from me? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. I almost went with NaH, because your brother clearly has unresolved resentment due to the parentification he experienced as a child. He is blaming the wrong person, though. This isn't on you. This is on your parents or legal guardians. So sorry, OP. Comment 2. Not the idiot. No one ever owes. The people who raise you. It would be like paying back your parents for simply being your parents. It makes no logical sense whatsoever. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I've got to get this off my chest. So, after I refused to give my brother a cut of my business revenue, things got really tense. We had a huge argument, and he brought up every single thing he ever did for me. It was like he had a mental ledger, and he was reading it out loud. I couldn't believe it. He even mentioned the time he bought me a suit for my first job interview, something I thought was a kind gesture, not a loan. I've been thinking a lot about our childhood since then. My brother was always the one I looked up to. He was the cool, older brother who knew everything. When our parents were busy, he was the one who helped me with homework, taught me how to ride a bike, and even defended me from bullies at school. I always felt like I was in his shadow, trying to live up to the example he set. But now, looking back, I see things differently. I remember the pressure I felt to make him proud, to somehow repay him for all he did. I never thought he'd actually hold me to it, though. It's like he's been keeping score all these years, and now he wants to cash in. Last Tuesday, things escalated. My brother showed up at my house unannounced. He was furious that I had talked about our situation online. Apparently, one of my cousins saw my post and told him about it. He felt betrayed that I'd air our dirty laundry to strangers. But I was just looking for some unbiased opinions, you know? We had a heated confrontation right there in my living room. My wife and kid were out, so it was just the two of us, going back and forth. He said he couldn't believe I was being so ungrateful after everything he'd done for me. I told him that I appreciated all of it, but it wasn't fair to hold it over my head forever. Then he dropped a bombshell. He said that when our parents' health started failing a few years back, he was the one who took care of the medical bills and never told me because he didn't want to stress me out. I was floored. I had no idea. He said that was part of what I owed him. I felt a mix of gratitude and anger. Why didn't he tell me back then? Why use it as leverage now? The argument got so intense that he stormed out, saying he didn't even know who I was anymore. I was left standing there, feeling like I just lost my brother over something so stupid as money. I've been trying to make sense of it all. I remember when I was about 10, he got his first job at a local grocery store. He'd spent his first paycheck on taking me to a baseball game. It was one of the best days of my life. I never thought that day would be part of some debt I owed. It's been a week since that fight, and we haven't spoken. My wife says maybe it's for the best, that we need some space to cool off. But it's hard. He's my brother, and despite everything, I miss him. I've been losing sleep over this. I keep thinking about all the times he was there for me, and it breaks my heart to think that he sees our relationship as transactional. I always thought family was about unconditional love, not keeping score. I've been talking to some old friends who knew us growing up, trying to get their perspective. They were shocked by his demands. They remember him as the generous big brother, not someone who would one day ask for payback. I'm at a loss, guys. I don't know if I should reach out to him or wait for him to come to me. I don't even know what I'd say. It's like we're strangers now, and that's the last thing I ever wanted. Husband promised me he'd quit partying for a new career, but now he's hinting at going to a music festival in another country. I just had a miscarriage, and he's prioritizing the festival over me. I'm giving him the silent treatment. Oh boy, I just found out he's been having an affair. So my 25-year-old female husband, 33-year-old male, works in the entertainment industry, which means he's around parties every weekend, coming home in the afternoon on weekends, etc. We've had many issues in our relationship related to this lifestyle. When we started dating, I told him we weren't compatible because I just couldn't live like this. He told me he was looking for a career change and was tired of the lifestyle too. He said it would only take a couple of months, as he was already getting paperwork to be able to work in another field. Fast forward, time kept passing by, and the paperwork is still not ready. We're almost 2 years in, have a 4-month-old baby, and I'm just sick and tired of this life. I'm a stay-at-home mom, he's a really caring husband, and we really get each other. We live a good life together, besides his job. There's an upcoming music festival in a South American country right now, and he started giving me hints weeks ago that he may need to go. I was very clear that I didn't approve of this, because in the past year he did the same trip, and it was a shit show. He told me he would only go if the money made sense, as January was going to be a slow month. He went above and beyond to make me understand he wouldn't be partying all day, etc. When I asked him how much he would make there, I told him that wasn't a significant amount and that I have savings we could use in case we were slacking this month. He completely refuses to let me use my money, so the conversation just didn't end in any agreement. For 2 weeks, the trip was never mentioned. I figured he may not be going, as it wasn't worth it. We found out that we were pregnant with our second child, and yesterday I started bleeding heavily and realized I was having a miscarriage. When I told him, he goes like, "Oh, are you bleeding? Is it bad?" I don't know what to do. The people that were going to pay me for this trip never confirmed with me and just told me they're already there and need me there by tomorrow. I'm like, what the F? So you are just telling me you're leaving tomorrow morning to a music festival in a different country while I'm miscarrying? To be honest, neither of us had enough time to be emotionally invested in this pregnancy, but I still feel so upset with the whole situation. He's heading there right now, calling me all the time to make sure I'm fine, but I just don't even want to pick up the phone. I really don't want to talk with him. I know the silent treatment is seen as a form of manipulation, but I just want to be left alone. Am I the idiot? Edit. Some words, English is not my native language, sorry in advance. Edit 2. I haven't stopped communicating. He's heading there right now, called to check on me, and I asked him to please mind his business while he's on his trip and leave me alone, as I'm not going to give him validation for what he's doing. But he insists he's going to be calling me all day, so I don't have to worry, and I just really don't want to talk with him. So I'm considering to stop answering the calls. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. If one of the first things he said to you after hearing about the miscarriage was, "Oh, these guys need me there tomorrow," he was always going, and was always going to pretend it was a last-minute thing. I had a 10-week miscarriage when my child was 6 months. It took my husband 2 hours to make it home from work. Those felt like the longest 2 hours of my life. Dealing with the physical side of miscarriage while caring for a baby is not easy. Your husband should be there for you. Tell him you will message him every day to let him know you're okay, but you don't need to be answering his calls to make him feel less guilty. Do whatever you need to do to get through the miscarriage and care for yourself and your 4-month-old. Asking any more of you is too much. Comment 2. Not the idiot. I'm sorry, but my wife is having a medical emergency. I can't just drop everything when you hadn't confirmed ahead of time. That is what your husband should have said. If they had pressed him, maybe he should have followed. If you are desperate, you'll need to double my pay. I'll talk to my wife about it as soon as I have the contract signed. I know the silent treatment is seen as a form of manipulation, but I just want to be left alone. Read up on reactive abuse. I am not saying your husband is necessarily hurtful, but he is being very selfish and neglectful. You reached your breaking point. This is a natural outcome. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and support on my last post. It's been a week since then, and a lot has happened that I need to get off my chest. After my husband left for the music festival, I was alone, dealing with the aftermath of the miscarriage. It was tough, but I had to focus on our 4-month-old baby, who needed me more than ever. The silence in the house was deafening, with only the sound of our baby's coos and my own thoughts to keep me company. My husband kept calling, just like he said he would, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. I was still reeling from the shock and hurt of him leaving at such a critical time. It wasn't just about the miscarriage. It was about all the broken promises and the realization that maybe he wasn't going to change after all. Back when we first met, he was the life of every party, and I was the quiet one, content with a good book and a cup of tea. We were opposites in every sense, but somehow we clicked. He promised me a future away from the chaos of his job, a stable life where we could raise a family together. I held on to that promise, even when everything else told me it was a pipe dream. The days passed slowly, and I found myself reflecting on our relationship. I remembered the early days, the excitement, the passion. He was always spontaneous, whisking me away on last-minute trips, showering me with attention. But as time went on, those moments became rarer, replaced by late nights and empty promises. Then came the call that changed everything. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but I answered it on impulse. It was a woman's voice on the other end, hesitant at first, then growing bolder as she spoke. She told me she was with my husband at the festival, that they had been seeing each other for months. My heart felt like it stopped beating. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She apologized, said she didn't know he was married, that he had told her we were separated. I hung up the phone, feeling numb. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. It wasn't just the infidelity, it was the lies, the deceit, the way he had looked me in the eyes and promised me a future he had no intention of building. When my husband finally came home, I confronted him. The confrontation was explosive, with accusations flying and tears streaming down my face. He tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was too much. He admitted to the affair, to the lies, and to the fact that he had no intention of leaving his job. The heartbreak was overwhelming. I had built my life around this man, had given him a child, was ready to give him another, and all the while, he had been living a double life, one that I was never truly a part of. I told him I needed space, that I couldn't look at him without feeling sick. He packed a bag and left, saying he would give me all the time I needed. But as the door closed behind him, I knew that this was more than just a break. This was the end of the life I thought we had, the end of the trust and love that I thought was unbreakable. Now, I'm left picking up the pieces, trying to figure out how to move forward. Our baby is my priority, and I'm trying to be strong for both of us. But the pain is still fresh, the betrayal still raw. I haven't decided what to do next, whether to try and salvage our marriage or to let go completely. It's a decision I never thought I'd have to make, and one that I'm not ready to face just yet. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.